Hey, welcome back to After Hours. Happy New Year. Today is the 1st of January 2026. So, hope everyone had an amazing Hogmanay. Drinking or not drinking, I hope you had a good time. And if you were drinking, you took it easy and celebrated in style. I'm recording this on the 30th, so a couple of days before Hogmanay. But last night, Jen and I did our little chat on the podcast. So she kind of interviewed me, and I'm not going to do a massive intro because you'll find out in the chat. And after 50 episodes, this will be 51. I'm sure you kind of know who I am and what I'm about. And but it was a kind of, Jen and I had spoken about doing it, I think way back, like in the summer, not long after the wedding. I had an idea to kind of open season 3 with, my story, whether I was going to just chat kind of, solo. But I thought, that it's better having a conversation on the podcast, like with my guests, with me. So I kind of roped Jen into, coming on and being a kind of a guest interviewer to have me as a guest. It worked really well. Jen knew a lot of my story, some of the bits that she hadn't heard, or in full detail. It was just interesting to, as I say, I kind of waffled, not waffled, but kind of did most of the speaking, but it was good to have some good input from Jen, mostly towards the end, but, throughout it as well. I've kind of listened back to it, really, really enjoyed, being able to kind of give you guys my full story. Like I've done other podcasts. I was on Sober Dave's, I've done the Sober Rebel, with Louisa. What else have I done? I've done the Willpower podcast. I've done Marcus Jones, Booze to Better, and I've done Rock Bottom with Ryan. I think that's all the ones I've done. So I think they're in my link tree if you want to go and check those out. I think I've got one coming up in the new year as well. But I thought for my podcast, I've never really told my full story. There's been snippets of it throughout the kind of year that we've been going. But it was just good to kind of get that down on the podcast. So I hope everyone enjoys it. Listen for the similarities, guys, and not the differences. Here is Jimmy Thistle on After Hours with Jimmy Thistle. See you at the end, guys. Cheers. Jen Thistle, welcome to After Hours, or should I say welcome Jimmy Thistle to After Hours, seeing as I'm on the flip side this time. It's my story. It's you're kind of interviewing me.
I should be welcoming you to it. So welcome, Jimmy Thistle. I'm Jen Thistle. Welcome to After Hours with Jen Thistle.
Well, I like that. Yeah. So tell the listeners who you are. I mean, I have spoken about you quite prolifically on the podcast, but who are you?
I'm your wife.
You're my wife, my troubling my current wife. Oh no, we won't go down that rabbit hole. No. My wife.
I'm your wife.
That's it. For people listening, which hopefully they are, when I was on Sober Dave's podcast, we'd not long been going out, had we? Like 2.5 years ago, and I was on Dave's podcast and I was talking about you and I said, my current girlfriend. I mean, girlfriend.
You backtracked pretty quickly.
I backtracked really quickly, but I haven't heard the end of it. So, so obviously I don't mean my current wife. I mean my wife. Thank you for having me on your podcast. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it looks lovely. Whereabouts are you in the country?
Just downstairs, babe.
Downstairs, yeah, absolutely. I love it. It looks nice there. Yeah. So this is all about my story, really. It's all about me, because obviously I've spoken, little bits throughout the podcast of the past year, with guests, and I'd throw in snippets of my kind of past. And I've done another podcast, but I thought it'd be good to do a conversational chat with you about my kind of past life before I met you, really. Yeah. And what we should say as well is Happy New Year to everyone, because it's the 1st of January today.
Oh, yay. Happy 2026.
Yeah. Happy 2026, people. Yeah. The power of doing a podcast. We can talk to people in the future, because this is currently the 29th of December. So just a couple of days before the new year. But yeah.
Let's hope it's half as good as 2025.
Well, I mean, 2025 is hard to top, isn't it?
It's a good year.
The year of wedded bliss and first Christmas married. So yeah, I was loving that. Yeah. But yeah, so what do you want to know, Jen Thistle?
Well, obviously I've listened avidly to all your other episodes.
Absolutely, all
Jimmy.
50.
So I think, stick to the same sort of format that you have with your guests, roughly. Yes.
Yeah.
So you tend to start, from my research that I've done into your podcast,
good work,
asking your guests when they first had their first drink.
So a little bit about my childhood and when I had my first drink.
Yeah.
That's the question. Okay. Yeah. My childhood was, textbook idyllic almost. I grew up in the countryside of Glasgow. We weren't too far from Glasgow. I had an older brother, a couple of years older than me, mum and dad. We didn't really go without. We weren't rich by any stretch of the imagination, but we were looked after, and we had lovely presents at Christmas time. We had food on the table. We had a roof over our head. We didn't have. My mum would have been absolutely, what's the word? Kind of mortified if any of us had like a rip in our school clothes or anything like that. That was always mended straight away, or then she would have to get some new trousers, because we never went like Raggedy Ann to school or anything like that. My dad, however, did leave when I was 6. My brother was a couple of years older, so he'd have been about 8 and a half. But I've delved into it and I've thought, is this the trauma that caused me to drink? And to be honest, it wasn't super traumatic. There was a few big fights when they were doing the breakup, but we saw my dad, my mum looked after us, and then I did have my dad got remarried, my mum got remarried, we had a stepfather. I ended up living in Greece for a couple of years when I was like from 12 till about 13, 14. So that was an experience that I was mad as hell at the time, because I just started high school, met all these new people, including my own friends and all that. And then suddenly, hoik, you're going to Greece. And I was like, what the? Do you know what I mean? So, but looking back, it was an amazing experience, living in, sunnier climes and going to an international school. So that was a mad experience. So yeah, as I say, there wasn't much trauma to speak of, not more so than any one person, So I did. There's no reason for me to have started drinking at an early age because of past traumas. The reason I started drinking at an early age was because everyone was doing it. I'm going to go with that. It wasn't peer pressure. It wasn't like someone, round the back of the bus shelter or, round the back of the school saying, here, drink this. It was just me and my friends. Like I'd had one drink I'd had a few drinks with my brother, maybe a couple of months previous to when my friends and I started. And that was, my parents were away. My brother, he was having a few drinks himself, and he was like, have you had a drink? And I was like, no, not really. Maybe, a sip of beer here and there. So he got me quite drunk. I mean, it didn't take long because that was the first time I'd really had a drink.
Well, what age were you then?
Oh, sorry, I was 14, yeah. So vodka and orange, 14. I maybe had, 3 or 4 house measured shots with orange. And I loved it. And we'd heard, so me and my cronies at school had heard other groups like getting drunk at kind of, parties or maybe bonfire nights or other events and all that. And we were kind of like, maybe a wee bit I don't know if scared's the right word, but we were like, oh, that's really naughty because you are young and all that. But once I'd done it with my brother and I thought, this is cool. I like the feeling. I loved it. And I was just kind of like to my friends, like, we need to get involved in this. And I remember we went up the woods. I can't even remember how we got the alcohol, but I got 4 bottles, just like Budweiser size beer bottles of Diamond White cider. So 4 in a pack. And I don't remember finishing the 4th one because I was that drunk. You know, I was like a 14-year-old kid. Do you know what I mean? It's like I was little. I wasn't that little, but I was still, you know, I was a boy, you know. And so for someone that hadn't really drank much at all, you know, one night a couple of months before, yeah, it was potent to me. So, but we from what we can remember, we had a great night, and that was just kind of how it went for, yeah, throughout school, really. You know, we did start smoking weed, but that was more just kind of recreational, I suppose. We did it a bit at school, maybe like after school, round people's houses if there was no parents in. But the thing with weed was it never really kind of took us out of ourselves. It never really changed our personalities and made us more confident or this, that, and the other. It was just something we did. Drinking, and I started smoking cigarettes as well. Those two went hand in hand. And then we started smoking the weed. But as I say, the weed was never really like a big party deal. It was just something that we'd started doing. And that was like, you know, by the by. But yeah, alcohol was kind of always there. It was always kind of the mainstay. It was like if we've got like a free house at the weekend, or even if we didn't, you know, if it's summer, winter, we'd be out wandering around our little village called Eaglesham in Scotland, not Eaglesham, Eaglesham, and yeah, it just seemed, you know, we would mix with other groups, and sometimes there'd be big parties. And actually, I think when I was about 16, my parents had gone away, and in Scotland we call it an empty. You know, you've got an empty house, your parents are away. It's like, oh, you've got an empty. And I had an empty, and I'd just had my close friends around, maybe a few others came, and a lot of them stayed over. The following weekend, I was actually grounded because my mum had found a beer bottle top. We'd cleaned the place from top to bottom, but she found a beer bottle top under a sofa or something, and she was like, you've had friends round and drinking and all that. So she grounded me the following weekend, and the following weekend was, like, people still talk about it now, it was the party to end all parties. It was like, what's that film? Is it Party X or X Party? I don't know. There's a film where this party just gets out of control. This happened at my school. 2 people were stabbed. The guy whose house it was, they're okay, they were lived, but it was just like people came from different areas to this party because they'd heard about it. Mm-hmm. And this was before Facebook or anything like that. And he lived in quite an affluent area. His house was like, you know, really nice. The banister was ripped off the kind of staircase. I think his dad's computer was thrown through. Like, the place was just absolutely destroyed. Police were obviously called, but there was just people everywhere. And yeah, and I missed it because I was grounded.
Yeah, but you're also lucky that hadn't happened to your mum's house previously.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I remember Chris, whose party it was, and we were in art class like the Friday or maybe the Thursday before the weekend, and he was going, Jim, he was going, I'm getting a bit worried that this has gotten a bit out of control, because he says, I keep hearing people saying that they're coming round to this party and all that. So he set this up that we would walk past these older kids in school going, oh yeah, it's a shame that the party's called off or whatever. This was it. And we thought that this would then kind of, you know, like go around like wildfire that the party was off. It didn't obviously work. And yeah, it just turned into this absolute madness party. Gutted that I missed it. Because people were talking about it for months and years afterwards. But yeah, also very glad that it didn't happen to my house, my parents' house. So, but yeah, that was the kind of, that was just the kind of the 90s, I guess. And I'm not making excuses, but you know, I mean, you grew up in the 90s as well, and it was just a kind of party vibe going on. You know, there was Oasis, there was TFI Friday on TV. Everybody was just, you know, like, what was that program? 2 pints of lager and a packet of crisps. I don't remember when. I don't know if that was the 90s. I think that might have been the noughties, but it was that whole mentality that's what we did. We went down the pub, we went to parties, we drank and we drank and we drank. But I think, go on.
Well, yes, and that was like the kind of culture that was around. But then a lot of your peers were also in that same culture and didn't go down the same route that you did.
Yeah.
So what made you think, at what point did you think that you had a different relationship to alcohol than your friends did?
Well, I mean, looking back with hindsight, I was definitely didn't have an off switch. I wasn't aware of my friends and peers monitoring what they were drinking, if they were, or I mean, looking back, they possibly were. They probably had an idea in their head that I'm only going to drink this tonight. I'm only going to get to this feeling in my head, and that's when I'll stop. Whereas with me, well, I mean, I could say, well, no one told me to do that, but I didn't have that foresight to do that. I just would drink until, and the thing with me was, I built up quite a tolerance, so I could drink and drink and drink and not pass out in the corner, or and I could always get home. Like, I did get into a few silly scrapes and things like that, but I would always manage to get home, even if it was the next day, and really piss my mum off by not calling or whatever. But this was before mobiles. But yeah, I just didn't know when to stop. Not that I didn't know when to stop, I didn't want to stop, because I enjoyed the feeling. And I enjoyed, I guess, looking back as well, I enjoyed the escapism of it, because, I was quite, well, I wouldn't say anxious, because I didn't know what that meant back then, but I thought I was quite a shy person, like going up and speaking to girls or other groups of people. If I was sober, I was very stoic and not feeling like I could be myself, But give me a drink and I could be the life and soul and be funny and, talk to anyone. But without that, I didn't know how to do that. I hadn't learned to do that because, again, I was 14 when I started drinking and 14 when I really started socializing. So it is quite a sad state of affairs that, I didn't know how to socialize without it. But to me, that was kind of how everyone was. And if we were going out, then we were all drinking. I mean, I didn't know anyone at that point that was not drinking, or doing other stuff. I did go through a period where I'd always promised myself I wouldn't take ecstasy, because of Leah Betts. I don't know if you remember Leah Betts. It was all over the billboards, and that kind of scared a lot of people, including me. And I did know people that took it, but then I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. Even though I'd taken things like acid and all sorts of stuff. But then I did take it. I'd moved up to Aberdeen at that point, and I took it with some friends. I just loved it. And actually, I never drank when I took that. So there was quite a few periods in my life where I was doing other stuff and I wasn't drinking at all. I'd probably go to the pub with friends and things like that, but it wasn't a drinky drug. That it was just like you were sober from alcohol, but doing that and getting high and enjoying that, doing the dancing, and so that was. But then, whether it was, it's not always easy to get, you'd have to get people and all that, and that's just a bit of a hassle. So when I lived in Aberdeen, I kind of just
There's somebody at the door.
There's somebody at the door. This is going to have to be edited. Who is it? Is it my mother-in-law?
It's Abby.
Is Abby?
Hi.
So yeah, well, as I say, I'd moved up to Aberdeen at this point, and as much as that ecstasy would be kind of every now and then. You know, I did go through a phase where it was, you know, it was quite regular. My drinking had calmed down. But then I was at college, but I wasn't really doing much at college. Didn't really like the course, and I ended up quitting, and I started working in a pub. I'd done a few different bar jobs before that. So we're talking, I was about 18, 19, and the pub became my life because I was full-time. I got promoted to like team leader, and then I was assistant manager, and all of our friends were working in the same pub. So any free time we had off would normally be like maybe a Tuesday or a Wednesday night or a Monday night, because we worked Friday, Saturdays, you know, and any night off we had, we'd just be going out with people from the pub that were off and drinking. Most of the time we'd probably be in the pub where we worked, because, you know, some of our mates behind the bars would give us free drinks, and it was honestly, it was like a big family, and it was just a great vibe. But yeah, there was obviously a lot of drinking, but again, I was in my late teens, 20s, you know, so it didn't feel like hangovers weren't bad. I definitely wasn't doing morning drinking at this point. You know, I think I've spoken in the podcast, there was a few times at college where we did. This is probably the first time I had a morning drink, because there's two pubs up there in the docks that are open from 6 a.m. because of the fishermen and the oil rig workers. So we thought it'd be funny to go in there one morning and have a drink before college. So we're in there from like 7 o'clock, I think. Maybe had 2 or 3 pints. Big Breakfast is on the TV, you know, Chris Evans or Johnny Vaughan, whoever's on at that time. And it was just exciting. It was just this kind of, you know, forbidden fruit almost, that like, what are we doing in a pub at 7 a.m. having a drink? And I don't get me wrong, I like that. I like that kind of risky behavior. That was just living for me, I guess. I just really enjoyed that kind of naughtiness, if you want to call it that. Going against the grain, doing things that you know, we're not supposed to in normal society. So I got a buzz from that, of course I did. But yeah, there was some silly things, like when I moved down to England for the first time, I moved back in with my parents because I'd been living in a flat in Aberdeen with some housemates. I wasn't the best financially, you know, and yeah, I guess because I was just out every weekend, you know, and I didn't know like, oh, I need to save money for this or I need to do money for that. All the money I had was just like, you know, for going out for the weekend. I think there's a song by, is it Hardfi, Living for the Weekend, you know, and it's, the whole song is about that. And I was like, this is me, you know, I'm in my 20s. I'll deal with life when, you know, when I get to it. But I moved back down to England with my folks, near Peterborough, and working in a pub, working in an office. So I had a couple of jobs to try and make a bit of money. Don't know where my money went though. I mean, I know now where it went, but I ended up getting stopped by the police one night. I was going around the ring road. I'd left the pub that I'd been working in, and I always stayed and had like a few pints. And I think I'd maybe had 3 or 4 more than I should have done anyway. I wasn't steaming, but I shouldn't have been driving. And I was driving. I think I was driving more cautiously than, you know, tearing around the ring road. And anyway, the police pulled me over, gave me breathalyzer, and I was over the limit. Took me down the station. Anyway, lost my license, and you know, my parents weren't too happy, but I think they'd been seeing that I had been kind of, you know, I wasn't like, if I was going out, I'd be going out in Huntingdon itself. So I'd normally stay at a friend's house, but then they would see me the next day and I'd probably look worse for wear. So they knew my drinking was escalating, maybe that's not the word, but they knew that I drank a lot. Anyway, this was obviously the icing on the cake, that I'd lost my license. The job that I was doing at the time, I was a forklift driver, so I couldn't drive the forklift because we had to cross a highway. So they were like, we can't employ you if you've not got the driver's license. Mm-hmm. So I took that as a kind of blessing in disguise, that's when I started my photography course. You know, and I did really well at that. Triple distinction, student of the year, and then eventually got a job working in photography. Okay, it was like, you know, product photography for an internet company, but again, it was great fun. And, you know, that was kind of mid to late 20s, worked there for 3, maybe 4 years, I think. And we were like a little family. There was only a few of us in there. We had beers in the fridge. So on a Friday afternoon, we'd put the latest episode of Lost on the big projector that we had, and we'd all get some beers out. And I had a great group of friends. But as the years progressed, like even the people at work, you know, they were moving on, they were having families and things like that. Whereas I was just kind of stuck in the same old rut of going out, finding new people to go and party with, or drinking on my own really became a thing then, because I had money. I would come back to my flat. I had housemates, but they were all kind of room dwellers. So I would go and get like maybe 3 bottles of wine for a tenner from the co-op. And I would drink that on a nightly basis. And I was 26, 27 at this time. So a lot of alcohol to be consuming at that time. But I knew if I had 4 bottles of wine to myself, I would be useless the next day. I would feel it. I would be awful. But 3 was fine. So I knew my limits. And like I was just sat in my room, not really doing anything, you know, just sitting, maybe watching a film, or I don't know, working on maybe some crap photos that I'd taken, because my creativity was completely, you know, stifled at this point. I was just doing my job. I could have used their studio for so many different creative purposes, but I just didn't. I was just interested in going out with my new crew and just, you know, getting off my head. And then through the week, as I say, this was just kind of my downtime. So 3 bottles of wine. Like if you'd saw me at the end of the night, if you'd seen me at the end of the night, you probably would have thought, oh, he's had a couple, you know? I mean, I'm not trying to big myself up here. That is what the 3 bottles of wine was doing for me. It was obviously I was getting to a point where I needed it to feel something. Whereas the weekends would be then a lot more. And, you know, I wouldn't say I fell out with anyone, but the group that I worked with, as I say, they were moving on, they were doing things, and I was still stuck in the rut. So we didn't fall out, but we weren't as close as we'd been. And then my group of friends here, like in the flat, they'd all moved out, and like I was still in touch with them all, but they weren't doing what I was doing. So then I would find another group of friends and, you know, start it up again. So much so that I ended up coming over to the Isle of Man, because my brother was like, well, he bailed me out when I ended up in Spain one winter's weekend. You know, I just drove to Stansted, drunk, obviously depressed and unhappy with what was going on in my life. People were moving on and doing their things and getting married and having kids, and I was just doing this. But I was like, I want to do all these amazing things. I wanted to be a writer and I wanted to be this amazing photographer, but I wasn't doing anything about it. You know, it was like these thoughts, but in order to do those things, you have to make them happen, you know? And I wasn't doing that. And that's quite, not sad to think back on, but I was like, well, I know exactly why none of those things were happening, because I wasn't doing it. I was just expecting it to happen. And for the most part, a lot of my life had, you know, things had just happened to me, you know, like my photography had happened. Then I got that great job at eBags, and then I got this really nice flat. These things had all just happened, so I didn't need to try. So why did I need to try for this? That's where things started going downhill. Sorry, you were going to say something there?
Well, I was just saying, your trip to Spain, was that literally a spur of the moment?
Yeah.
Sat there one evening, I'm going to the airport now.
Yeah. I'd watched Into the Wild about 5 times over the course of a month. Like, I loved that film. And the thing with me is, which you probably won't notice because we don't have time, but if I love a film, I'll just like watch it and watch it and watch it. You know, so that film really resonated with me. And he obviously was looking for his Alaska, and he wanted to just disappear and go off into the wilderness. And I was just sat in my flat one night, not happy with my lot, and decided, well, where am I going to go? I could go to Mallorca. Well, I didn't actually know that. I drove to Stansted, which is about 40 minutes from where I lived in Cambridge, and basically got in there. And I mean, I probably had a bottle of wine or something, because I wouldn't have done that sober. You know, I wouldn't have just driven to Stansted. Packed a bag, took my laptop, my camera, and and then looked at the board and went up to the desk and said, like, where's the cheapest flight? And they were like, Mallorca. I was like, right, get me on that one. So I flew to Mallorca in the middle of November, didn't tell anyone, didn't tell a soul that I was going there, and rocked up. Obviously, first thing I'd do is, well, I think I booked into a hotel, not even thinking like, oh, because I wasn't loaded, didn't have much money, and then went and found like a bar, loads of expats in it, and they were like, what's your plan? And I was like, oh, I just decided to come over here. I'm going to get a job. And they were like, well, there's not really much work here at this time of year. It's Mallorca. It's like a holiday resort, I was like, well, maybe I'll get cleaning. They're like, maybe, don't know. Anyway, I drank most of what money I had left, got into a bit of a scrape. I don't even remember what happened, but I lost my laptop, my camera. Luckily, they didn't take my phone. Like I wasn't bruised or anything, so it might have just been a straightforward mugging or whatever. Don't know. And then eventually, I think my mum and my brother had been trying to get in touch with me because, like, my housemate Sylvie was like, "Where the hell's he gone? Like, what's going on?" So they were trying to get in touch with me, and eventually, my brother got in touch with me, and I explained to him what had happened, and he was like, "Right, I'll help you out," and he got me a flight home. Yeah, drinking on the flight. I had to get my car back out. I think that was like 90 quid because I just parked it in the short stay car park. Just not a care of any consequences. Just, this is what I'm going to do. And got home. And I think that was it. I was like, right, I need to get out of Cambridge. But again,
this late 20s here.
So I'd have been about 27, 28. Yeah. We call them geographicals in the AA fellowship world because you're constantly thinking, right, I need a change. So I thought, right, I'll go to my brother's in the Isle of Man, beautiful Isle of Man, and that'll fix me. That'll make me better. But this is still here. This is still following me about, and that wasn't fixed. So I went to the Isle of Man and started my running again. I'd done a bit of running before, like I'd done the Peterborough half marathon. I did that. But I came over here, got a job, and then I started the Radna Fallen, which is the coastal path, which we know all about. And I've, since I've done that, but back then, I've done the whole thing. Yeah, I've done the whole thing.
All the way around the island.
Yeah, I didn't know if you knew that, Jen, but I did do that.
I did know that. I think you might have mentioned it before.
Yeah, but I thought I'd mention it again. But so I started doing that because I thought I've got a week until I start work in this new job at the bank. And I thought, right, this is what I can do. I can do this coastal walk. So this was kind of like getting in the mode of into the wild, but not running off, Mm-hmm. And I did it. I walked from Douglas down to Castletown. There's a picture of me in, I can't remember the name of the pub, the one on the kind of harbour on the quayside there. I've got a big map sprawled out of the island, and I've got a pint of Guinness. I had a little bottle of dark rum with me anyway, but that was, for the photo because I was doing my intrepid travelling. And that was at like midday, and then I wandered on to Port St Mary nearly, so more like Brewers Beach along the shore road, and I camped there on the cobbles. Met a lovely couple, in fact, in one of the little like servants' quarters houses at the bottom of the garden of the big house. You know the one I mean? Because I was saying to them, like, I was knocking on their door and I said, "Is there anywhere I can camp in the grounds here?" And they were like, "No, but like, what are you doing? It's dark." And they were like, "Come on in. We're just having some food." So they gave me some food and they gave me some wine. And we had this great chat. I haven't been able to track them down, which I've tried a few times, but they've long since gone because this is nearly 20 years ago. Anyway, I did camp on the beach, woke up the next day, made myself some beans and stuff, feeling pretty rough because I'd slept on the cobbles there, and then made it into Port St Mary Harbour and phoned my brother and was like, "Nah, I'm done." Because my feet were absolutely killing me. And I'd been drinking the whole of the kind of the day before, like on the walk. This is just what I did. Even though I was thinking I was being healthy and out there and doing it, it's just drinking and drinking and drinking.
It's so weird to think that you were down there in Port St Mary and I was like up the hill living my life.
Yeah. And here's this like bumbling numpty who you would probably been like, who's that guy? Yeah, what's this guy doing? Anyway, worked in the bank for a couple of years. Started off pretty good, I got a few promotions and things like that, and then it rears its ugly head, and I started doing silly things, so much so that I fell out with my brother. He kicked me out. I ended up living with some colleagues. They fell out with me. They kicked me out. And then eventually I left the island and moved to London, because I was in, a kind of long distance relationship with the lady there. And that was just like green light, because they were party people, all her friends. So it was just like, yeah, cool. This is, my parents are way up in York. My brother's over there. So there's no real family to say, what are you playing at? Because I don't think my brother and me were speaking at that point. And I was down in London, and I was like, yeah, Mum, look at me. I'm doing great. I'm living in London, got a nice relationship. I had a new sales job there, which I hated. So actually, I went and did a training thing with work. So we were away for a week up in Darlington, I think. And it was just all about sales training, but it was in a pub. It was like a, what do you call it? Like a, not Holiday Inn. It was a Premier Inn. So when we finished, it was like the conference center we were using for the training was there, and then our rooms were just off another wing. So then there was a pub in between it, and it was just like the whole week getting to know everyone, sales environment, and just drinking at the pub. By the time I came back to then start on the Monday, I'd had a huge big weekend with our friends. Monday I was absolutely wrecked. Like, I'd had a whole week of drinking with this training thing, getting paid for it, party at the weekend. And Monday, and I couldn't face it. So I didn't go into work the first Monday. I decided to take myself on a little tour around London. Didn't even tell my partner at the time. Like, she thought I was going to work. And I just thought, nah, you know what? I'm just going to go and have a little jolly around London. And I remember this the other day. I was walking past the Tower of London, and there was a big event thing on. And I shot myself because I thought, what if there's like TV cameras here or something, and I'm spotted? And then she's like, what the hell were you doing over there when you're meant to be in work? So I was like, right, tomorrow I'm definitely going in. So like I did. But that was kind of how my life kind of, went. If it was just easier for me to take a day off and go and do some drinking and get away with it, then I would. Do you know what I mean? It was like, what's that? The path of least resistance.
Well, that happened again later with another new job, didn't it? You didn't go in for the first week.
Yeah,
I skipped ahead, but
no. But that's exactly it. That's kind of what these things kind of happen, because if I was feeling rough because of my drinking, and it was easier for me to just go somewhere and drink, nobody needs to know, because I didn't think people would find out. People found out. People, I always find out, but at the time I was like, no one's going to find out. I'm just going to do this today, and then I'll be okay. I'll go into work tomorrow. So that time in London, it was fine. I did go in the next day. I hated the job, and I didn't stay much longer. And again, it was that whole vicious circle with me, where it was just kind of, I get a job, do it for a bit. But because I was unfulfilled, I didn't enjoy what I was doing. Like, working in an office for me is the worst thing I could have possibly done. I'd have probably been better going back and working in pubs, because working behind an office desk was just killing me.
I can't imagine you doing it, babe.
Well, yeah, exactly. I can't imagine doing it now. Like, it's just insane. But for so long, like, that was so, like London was London, and it was good, and I stayed, and we broke up, and then I stayed a bit longer, and I shouldn't have done, and then I went back up to Leeds where my parents were. So again, head in my hands, going back to my parents. But again, it was like that whole like working in an office was, from, apart from the uni bit, from London, well, from Barclays really, to 2020. So from 2008 to 2020, so like 12 years of office work, many jobs. We're not talking 12 jobs, we're not even talking 3 jobs, we're talking probably about 20 different jobs, temp work, this, that, and the other. I met some amazing people, and there was a good kind of social aspect to it, but that's the only part I enjoyed. You know, I didn't enjoy the mundanity of sitting behind the desk. And I know a lot of people enjoy that. They don't want to be outside, but I just can't imagine doing that again. You know, I mean, I love being outside. Like, wasn't even supposed to be working today, but I did. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't to get out and go shopping with you. I would have enjoyed that, but I thought I'll go and do some working today, and then.
I enjoyed my little solo shop. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't have wanted me because I'd have just been. Oh, can we go here? Can we go here? Anyway, getting off sidetrack there, but so I did go back up to. Well, my parents were outside York. Oh yeah, well that's an interesting one. My parents got back together, so my mum and dad got back together. And as much as my brother and me had Christmases with them, that first Christmas when it was just us and my mum and dad, we were like, me and my brother, grown men, were like, what is going on here? This is weird.
Such a sweet story.
But it's a lovely story. So when I moved back to York, it was just nice to hang out with my dad and really make up for lost time. We did that in the pub, unfortunately, but that was when we both got a really nice time to really open up to each other and chat and, you know, get to know each other again, which was lovely. So they had a lovely little local pub, and I met some lovely people in there. Did uni, didn't finish it, met someone in a bar when I was meant to be doing a photography job for someone. And I did go and do the filming, but I was out with a friend. I was out with a friend, and we were in this bar, and there was this other person at another table, and she started giving us a bit of attitude and all that. But it was just kind of jokey, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, my friend left, and then it just seemed to be me and her just drinking. And then I was like, well, I need to go and do this job. But what are you doing and all that? So anyway, she came with me to the job, and then we just continued drinking like the whole night. And then that was the start of a recipe for disaster, really. Because we both absolutely love to drink. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that was like, looking back, you know, no offense to her, she's a lovely person, I'm sure, but I don't think we ever really got to know each other, you know, because we were just
facilitating
drinking
it for each other.
Yeah. Like there was times when we'd maybe go, right, are we drinking a lot? Yeah, we are drinking a lot. Like, you know, a bottle of whiskey pretty much a night or each is a lot for anyone. It's for, you know, what's essentially like a fragile mammal is quite a lot of poison to be
You're not consumed. A fragile mammal.
Humans are quite fragile, let's be honest. So yeah, but we just drank. Like, we started again with the 3 or 4 bottles for a tenner from the local shop. Then that wasn't enough, so we quickly harpooned it up to a bottle of whiskey. But then there was other stuff involved in that. So the whiskey was the main thing, and then it was vodka. But I guess we would say, like, we're drinking a lot. Let's cut this out. But
would that be like every night?
Not every night. No, it'd be like after maybe a month or two of just like hard at it, and we'd be like feeling rough. And then we'd go, right, shall we kind of knock this in the head? And then we're like, yeah, we'll quit for a bit. And then we'd maybe get like 1 or 2 days, and then either me or her would fold. And then the other person who didn't fold wouldn't go, oh, come on, you need to make a good go of this. It was like, right, ka-ching, green light, let's do it. So that's kind of how that went. We moved around a lot. You know, we got some cats. We still got Poppy out of that, and we've got Poppy, who's right next to you. So, you know, Poppy's what, 13, 14 nearly, I think. But we got a pub.
Yes, you did.
We got a pub.
That seems like a good idea.
Near Sheffield. I was working in a pub. We were living at her parents' for a bit. They had like a little annex flat because they had a B&B. So we were living in there with all the cats. And I mean, it was tiny. It was absolutely tiny. It was like a little room above the garage. Anyway, but it was nice. You know, we we'd come on hard times, basically. She'd lost her job, I'd lost my job, and we went back to our parents. So we were up there. I was working at the local pub, and then one of the guys that would come in, he ran the other pub down the road, and it wasn't performing. No one was going into it because they were all coming into this pub. And he eventually was like, I'm done with it. And he goes, do you want to take it over? And I was like, what do you mean? And he goes, come and have a look. So I went up the next day, and it was this beautiful big hotel. I've showed it to you, haven't I?
Yeah,
it's
now
now
like
this
a guest house now.
Like a guest house where you can just hire the whole thing for yourself, like full pub hotel. And I mean, it was massive. I think it had like 6-7 rooms. I don't know, anyway, and it was massive. A huge kitchen, huge big bar, big lounge area, and all that. And I was like, and you want me to take this over? And he goes, well, it's not me. He goes, it's a punch tavern, so I'm going to tell the owners that you can take it over. So they came through. We had this little quick interview, and they were like, yeah, cool. And it was live in, so we were basically living in the flat up in the hotel. And we were like, well, we've got 3 cats. And they were like, yeah, bring the cats, it's fine. So there was one point when I was behind the bar, there was a few people in. Poppy wandered downstairs from upstairs, these great grand big stairs, wandered into the bar, and I was like, this is living. Do you know what I mean? Like feeling like a proper landlord and all that. And I was like welcoming people into my front room, and actually people started coming back into the bar. Now I didn't have any staff because I thought I want to really get the place going, because I'm not doing anything else. I can work here all day long. And if there's no one about, she could come on and serve behind, and I could go for a lie down or whatever. But we thought we need to get a chef, although she could do a bit of cooking, pulled pork and things like that. And we thought we'll do an open mic night, and we'd been planning this for a few weeks, and there was a few people coming through from Buxton, which was close by. And anyway, I'd been drinking quite a lot behind the bar, just doing it kind of quite secretly, but I think people could tell because, looking now, I can tell when someone's had a couple of drinks. But I thought I was kind of, yeah, it's cool, it's all fine. Anyway, we'd had a few kind of little small parties in the place, and one night, me and her had a bit of a fallout. She'd had an altercation with another girl, and she'd gone to live with a friend for the next night. And then I suddenly had this open mic night to do. So people started arriving, and I was just there on my own. I was like, yeah, set up over there, blah, blah, blah. And then literally people just started coming in. I wasn't expecting it to be as busy as it was. But I was like, this is great. This is great. I was trying my best to serve everyone. And this is where it gets a bit hazy because, I was kind of blacking out at this point, still functioning, still doing my thing. But I remember looking over at the bar, and I just see people behind the bar just like pouring their own pints, and I was like, whatever. I'd kind of gone beyond caring at that point. And I was like, I'll deal with it whenever. I was like, everyone's having a great night. It's fine. This is what it's all about. But then I basically woke up the next morning, no one else about, which is very bizarre. Everyone had just like gone, left, whatever. I was probably the drunkest person there, if I'm honest. People had just come through for an open mic night, had a few beers, whatever. Whereas the landlord's probably the drunkest person there, and he's just gone upstairs. So anyway, I then woke up to a knock on the door, and it was the police outside. So the police wanted to see me over this altercation between her and this other girl. So they took me through to Buxton. So I didn't really have time to process the actual state of the place. And I was like, got back later on, the police spoke to me, that's fine. Got back, absolute carnage. There's broken like glass doors. There was beer everywhere, beer bottles, just an absolute mess, mostly superficial, not much damage done. So I told my friend to come round, and I was like, I'm absolutely hanging. So I'd had a couple of drinks, and I said, can you go and get me some cigarettes from the shop? And he was like, I don't have my car. I said, take my car, it's fine. He's gone for about 45 minutes, and I'm like, where's he going? he comes back maybe an hour later, and he's like, "Oh man, I've just totaled your car." And I was like, "You've done what? Like, what is going on here?" So he was quite a fast, speedy boy racer type, and I didn't even think. I just thought, like, it's 10 minutes down to get the cigarettes and come back, and then we're done. No, he decided to absolutely rally it down there, spun it on the ice because it was February night, flipped it, put it in the bush, damaged someone's hedge, smashed the back windscreen, and I was like, all right. So I think me and him stayed up and had quite a few drinks that night. He went home. Next day, I was waiting on him to come and get the car towed because he was like, I'm going to get my mate to sort this out. They're going to do it. Anyway, the only thing he did was get the car towed to the car park of the pub. Didn't fix anything, didn't pay for anything, didn't do nothing. And then I had the owners of the pub come in, who then went and did a quick, I wouldn't say quick, but they know how to count up what beer's gone, what spirits are gone, blah, blah, blah. Can't remember the total, but what they did was they took my laptop and my phone, I think it was an iPhone 6 at the time, and said that they would hold that until I had enough money to pay them back. And I was like, well, I don't have that. So I turned tail, got in my car without the back windscreen, and drove up to York to my folks. I was like, yeah, done. Now, me and her didn't quite break up at that point. We kind of were on and off for maybe another 6 months, a year, I think, of her living at my parents', not really doing much. We eventually got all the stuff out the pub, but she wasn't really doing much. And I was actually quite abstinent for a while, which was like my grandfather, my papa at the time. He was 90? I think he was nearly 96. He was still out painting fences. But when I moved back home, he got a little bit of some kind of viral thing. Then he took an infection and he went downhill really fast. But I was sober at this time, and it was really nice to be able to, for him to see me, because he knew all the stuff that I'd been kind of upset my parents and all that. So it was nice to have that little last couple of months before he passed, just, spending time with him. And yeah, so I think I was sober for about nearly 3 months, but then she did come back into my life. And I know I'm a big boy. She was asking me to get vodka because she was having anxiety. She was obviously going through withdrawal. She wasn't coming down and having dinner with the folks. I was out working. I'd bring back vodka. Then we would sit and drink that up in my room. And this was just going on and on and on and on. And we eventually split. And I did go through times of sobriety. There was times where I was definitely sober, and trying to get my life back in order. But then it would just, because I'd never said to myself at those times of sobriety, you can never drink again. I was always like, well, I'll give it a break for a bit, and then back to it. Once I went back,
were those times were they kind of conscious, like, oh, I have got a problem with this, so I'm going to stop? Or was it kind of, was it just kind of situational that you kind of weren't hanging around with people that were drinking a lot? Or how conscious was that decision?
I think it was mostly to appease other people, like family. But also, yeah, you're right. Maybe it was because I wasn't hanging about with people, because I would kind of cut myself off really from people. And if I wasn't going to the pub, but then I would maybe start a new job, be like a temp or whatever. And then people would be like, oh, we're going out for so-and-so's birthday. Do you fancy coming? But actually, when I did do that, job in York where I was parking riding, I was quite careful that I was like, no, I'm not going to do any of the drink driving. I'm just going to have one and then get my bus and then drive home. But then sometimes that would kind of escalate, and it would just kind of always rear its ugly head and kind of take hold of me again. Yeah. Where do we go from here?
Well, you kind of.
I feel like I've done all the talking. I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, I know we were going
to. That's okay.
What's that?
It's about you, so that's okay.
I know, but I know when I get going, I'm like, ugh. So I hope I haven't really I know we said it was going to be conversational, but I just feel like I've been rabbiting on.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't have much of a story to tell in the same vein as you do, so.
No. Okay.
Well, so you got out of this codependent alcohol-fueled relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then obviously it didn't stop for you then, did it?
It didn't stop for me then, no. As I say, I did kind of do a lot of fitness. I was doing a lot of running. A person that I knew had taken her own life, and that kind of, I knew there was mental health issues there. So I started doing a lot of running that year for Mind. So I was doing a lot of hiking. And then that was around the same time that I met my now ex-partner. And we had quite a nice summer, and we kind of, we're going camping. She introduced me to her kids. We did have a few drinks and things like that, but I was quite cautious at keeping it to a minimum. I didn't want to go silly with it or anything like that. I suppose I wanted to impress, but I was quite, maybe I didn't feel the need to, I don't know. And then I started a new job, and then, there was a few things that happened that we'd moved in together, and it was just like we did a lot of things really quickly. I moved in after like 3 months, and our kids were a bit, well, we hadn't told them that I was moving in, which was a bit silly. But it was a lot of things too quick, too fast. The new job, the new space, new area. I was quite a distance away from where any of my friends were and all that. So it was just me, and the job that I just started, I hated. And again, I started falling into that trap of, well, I'm feeling hanging. We've been drinking. I've been drinking. I'm going to phone in sick, and then I'll go and sit in my car and I'll drink some vodka to make myself feel better. And then it'll just be today. And then it would be like 2 days or 3 days. And then I would go into the job, and then I wouldn't be performing in my jobs. And then I'd be like, oh, what's the point? I'm going to find something different. I'm going to find another job. And most of the time I would just leave them. I didn't get fired from many jobs, but I would just normally not really show up or let them know what was going on, and then just leave. Which is not very professional. At this point, I'm 37, 38. So, I'm not a child. But I'm acting very immature. So that kind of became quite a normal thing for me to just go and sit either under the Humber Bridge. There was a huge big car park there with not many cars in it. It was like a country park. So you could kind of just sit there, and it wasn't too far from the house. So I wasn't out on main highways or anything like that. I could just kind of drink in the car.
So is that the point where it kind of became a bit more problematic, your drinking?
Definitely problematic at this point. I mean, I think it'd been problematic for quite a few years, but this is
kind of the beginning of the end.
Beginning of the end, where I'd stopped kind of, I think at this point I'd stopped trying to get better with it, because I just thought, what's the point? And I was getting really, really depressed. And obviously my ex and the kids were noticing that, and there'd be times where I would abstain, and I would maybe stop for like a week or two, and I'd be like, oh, I'm not so grey anymore. This hasn't killed me. So I'd be like, well, I'll just start drinking again. And I think she found it she didn't want to admit that I was, for want of a better word, an alcoholic, because that would then mean we wouldn't have booze in the house. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it was a selfish point from her. I think it was more like, let's try and see what other solutions we can do for this, than go to the full extreme where you're an alcoholic, you can't ever drink again. Yeah. So it was kind of like, well, what can we do? I did go to an AA meeting, and I thought, well, I'm not one of these guys. I wasn't listening for the similarities rather than differences, but we were coming over here for my 40th. And I think at this point I'd done dry January, and my birthday's, as you know, on 7th February. So I'd done dry January. My citalopram that I was on was actually starting to kick in. So I was feeling quite happy and jovial. And we were coming over here for my 40th to visit my folks, because they'd moved over the year previous. So we were all in the car, and it's like, I think it's a good 3, maybe 4 hour journey from, no, it's not that much, maybe 2 hours from Hull through to Heysham. And we're about half an hour away from the port in Heysham, and I pulled into the petrol station and the car went, and I was like, what? And I opened up the bonnet and the engine had just dropped. So that car wasn't going anywhere. So we ended up in this services for like 7 hours until the roadside recovery came to get us, then drove us all the way back to Hull. And luckily we didn't go, because that ferry was one of the possible worst ones. It was like up, down, up, down. Like my brother showed me a video of it coming into the harbour that someone had filmed, and it was just awful. So thankfully we weren't on that boat, because there'd have been absolutely chundering everywhere. But we made it back to Hull, and I was like I was feeling quite proud. I was like, I stood up and I got us 8A and all that, and not that 8A. And I said to her, I said, oh, did I do good? Did I get us home? She went, yeah. She goes, you did. She goes, but I think we deserve a glass of wine. And I was like, here we go. So I went up to the shop and I think I bought 3 bottles of wine. She maybe had one, where I was necking it, going straight back on, and then I went and got another 3 bottles. So I had probably the best part of 6 bottles that night. She might have had 2, so I'd maybe had 4. Next day she was absolutely hanging. I wasn't, because I'd gone up to the petrol station in the morning and got myself a little half bottle of vodka. So it was like school holidays. I don't think I was working at that point. And that went on for maybe a week or 2, where I was just drinking, getting more and more belligerent, because, as I say, every time I went back to it, it got worse and worse and worse. Yeah. And I just wasn't happy. And I ended up, my friend who had known from school was living near, well, about an hour away in Wetherby. And he was like, yeah, come and live with me for a bit. So I did. I just kind of packed up my gear and left. Cut a long story short, I ended up in rehab, got an intervention from like my folks. She was in chats with my parents. He was, and my brother and his partner. They were all kind of like, we need to do something about it, because he's just an absolute mess. Like the guy in Wetherby was like not happy with you drinking in the house. So much so that when he took the dog for a walk, he locked me in the house without any booze. But he'd forgotten that there was a door behind his bookcase which had the key in it, and there was an M&S right across the street. So I managed to just move the bookcase, open the door, go get my vodka, and then come back in the house without him knowing. Like, he'd locked all the windows. If there'd been a fire, I would have been absolutely fucked. So anyway, but obviously he then worked out that how's he drinking? How is he drunk? Like, he's up in his room and he's drinking, but I've locked him in. How is this possible? What is he, a Houdini? But, we are quite crafty.
I was going to say, where there's a will, there's a way.
You know what? Like, if it got really bad, I'd probably just smash the window. I'm not that type of person, but when you're desperate for your medicine, which it was at that point, then you will pretty much do anything.
And when they staged this intervention, were you surprised, or were you like belligerent about it, or were you kind of accepting of it? What was your take on it?
A bit of everything, really. I think I was a bit belligerent when I was drunk, but then when I sobered up, I was like, okay, this is actually probably something that I do need. And the idea of going to rehab for 28 days was like, it was something that I'd kind of fantasized about, like somebody just coming along and picking me up, stopping me drinking, and just keeping me somewhere like for X amount of time to just say you cannot drink, and that's the magical thing that doesn't really happen, because you have to do the work yourself, which I didn't know at that point. But it did give me a good kind of start into it, and it was like, it gave me all these new ideas, like smart recovery was there, the AA stuff that I'd never really touched on, that was all there. There was a lot of learning. I had to write a letter to my friend alcohol as a goodbye letter, so I did that. That was really interesting. Met some amazing people, like just some amazing people. But as I've said in the podcast before, 3 of them they've since died from alcohol related, you know, issues.
I remember you sharing a stunning statistic with me about like recovery, people who go through like rehab, about the percentage of people that actually recover is
so
like tiny, isn't it?
2%.
Yeah.
So if you think
of crap,
if you think of alcoholism, let's forget about drug addiction. You think of alcoholism as a disease, which I know some people think it is, some people think it's not, but let's call it a disease for what it is, because it does kill you. And if people have got this disease and they want to get better from it and they get in recovery, but only 2% of those people that have had the disease that then get into recovery stay in recovery. 2%, you know? And there's other diseases out there where their recovery rate is so much higher. Whereas this is just kind of like, oh, you've done it to yourself. This is your own fault. You know, and I can see this. I can see the argument from both sides, because I know that the hospitals, especially in the UK and over here, on a Friday and Saturday night or midweek, they'll see the same usual faces time and time again, coming in drunk as a skunk, wanting a detox, or, you know, they don't know where they're at or what's going on. But it's because they've got this overwhelming mental and physical addiction that you in yourself know. You can see what's happening, and you can see yourself doing these things, like going up to the shop when you've told yourself you're not going to do it, but because you know that is the one thing that's going to make you feel better, when actually everything inside you is screaming, I am fucking dying, I'm in so much pain, mentally, physically, that one thing is going to make me feel better. So if anything gets in the way of that, it's scary. And it's scary for me even saying that now, because, like, you know me, I'm not, you know, I do think of consequences, and I think about other people before I do things and all that. But back then, no, it was like everything and anything didn't matter unless it was helping me to get my medicine. And yeah, like rehab was great, but COVID started at that time, and that was when
a weird time for you to emerge from rehab into a COVID lockdown world.
Nobody really wanted to speak to me. My parents were over here. My friend Kathy was just an absolute saint and took me in. And I did a grand total of 55 days. So I did 28 in rehab, another few days out at hers, and then I moved into my flat and had a bit of a bad news fallout, whatever you want to call it, with my ex, and then was like, I'll show them.
Yeah. So
I went and got myself 4, maybe 8 cans of Kronenberg or Stella strong lager, a bottle of vodka, and also got 4 bottles of alcohol-free beer, because I thought if anyone comes to the door, if anyone comes to the door, no one's coming to the door. We're in COVID, and I don't know anyone in Tadcaster. But if anyone came to the door and said, like, I think in my head, I was thinking, is my brother or my parents just going to show up? And like, if they do, well, I've just been having alcohol-free stuff, if that's what you smell in my breath. Like, they didn't get touched, you know, because I was just, and then that was me again. That was like, I'd done my 55 days, but then I was just out there again. I was just,
and were you straight back into it? Like,
straight back into it, daily, so much so that, you know, I was on universal credit, but my money was kind of dwindling. And I'm not proud of it, but I remember one time I was in the Sainsbury's, and I knew this technique where you could they've got the plastic things over them, you know, the bottles, and I could just twist it a little bit and it would come off, and I would put it in my short pocket and I walked out. So I only did that once, but I'm not proud of it, but I needed it, you know. And it was like the happiest day of my life, because I was like, wow, I've got like a half bottle of vodka. This is the strong stuff. Because at that point I'd just been buying what wine I could. I'd been texting people and saying, can you lend me this and I'll get you back? And, you know, people were getting sick of that, especially my family. But there was other people, my friends, that were like, we're sick of lending it to you, you know. Like Rob was like, you know, I remember he was great. He really did. He really stuck by me, you know, because, and other people did as well. But Rob was like, one night I was so drunk, we were on a Zoom call, and he knew I'd passed out like while I was talking to him, but he stayed on the call for, I think it was like 2 or 3 hours. Just obviously he was doing other things, but he was just checking on me to make sure that I was okay and I wasn't like, you know, being sick of myself or anything like that. And I think I did get up and then go into my bed at one point, but I don't remember it. But he was like, once I'd done that, I was like, right, okay, we can sign off now. But yeah, he was great. But I lied to him as well. There was times when I told Rob, yeah, I'm not drinking. When I got to the Isle of Man, I told him that, yeah, I'm not drinking. It was one day when I was walking along the road, I was going out for a walk, and I had a half bottle in my pocket, but I was chatting to Rob, and I was like, yeah, I'm feeling better. I'm on the island. I've done my detox for COVID and all that. Absolutely just bullshitting him, you know. And then eventually getting to the end of the tether with my folks, with my brother, all that over here. And they were like, what are you bringing to the island? You know, you're just causing this disaster.
You were in your flat, right? And decided to press the fuck it button and bought all the booze and got straight back to it. But then you got to the Isle of Man. So how did you get to the Isle of Man?
So, yeah, my parents were over here, and they were like, they knew I was drinking again. And they were like, you know, we put you in rehab and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And I just wasn't happy. I was pissing my ex and my friend off because, you know, I'd found out that they were kind of doing stuff behind my back, but lying to me about it and making me think that I was going off my rocker. So I was actually going off my head, but also that was making it even worse. But you know, then I got confirmation, and I ended up getting arrested one night because I'd gone near his flat. And he was saying, he went to the police and he said, look at all these emails and stuff. There was a couple of threatening ones in there, but they weren't like super threatening. Like, he grew up in Glasgow. I was messing with him. And I went round to him to say, listen, man, I just want to talk to you. And next thing I knew, the police were there. So the police put me in a cell, and I was like, right. So my mum was like, right, you need to come over here. So she tried and got, I think she even spoke to some MHKs, which are Manx equivalents of MPs, members of the House of Keys, and they got me an exemption because of COVID. They weren't allowing people to come in, but my mum, like, you know, what's that? Yeah, the borders are closed. She was great, but because my family was over here, because I'd been going through these mental health issues, my addiction, they eventually got me this exemption to come over. So I got Poppy in the car, put her in her little box, and we drove from Tadcaster to Heysham. Well, in fact, we stopped off at the same petrol station where my car engine had collapsed before. And I was sat there, and I didn't have my phone because the police had still kept my phone. So I was on my laptop, and I opened up, and I managed to jump onto Costa's Wi-Fi. And my brother came through a messenger saying, have you checked the Steam packet today? And I was like, no, why? And he goes, because the boats aren't going today. And I was like, oh. So I was like, got back in the car. Have I not told you this story? Yeah. So you know what Poppy's like in a car? She just meows the entire way. So this is like 2.5 hours of Poppy just going, wow, 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 the whole way. So then I had to jump back in the car. Well, turn around, go back to Tadcaster. So another 2.5 hours with Poppy. Get her out the box in the flat, and she's like, what the hell was that for? Like, why have you done that to me? To then jump in the car and do the whole same thing again the next day. Got on the ferry, and we did eventually get to Isle of Man. And then I had to do 2 weeks quarantine in my parents' house because that was the rules. So I basically did a cold turkey detox at that point.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, which is quite dangerous for seizuring and all sorts of things. But luckily I was okay. was out, and I'd done some lovely things with my mum. We went down Port Erin Beach. I went like, so this would have been July, I think. So I took my shoes and socks off and went in the water. I was like, oh, this is great. I'm really grounding myself and all that. Mm-hmm. There was one day, I think I'd maybe been sober about 3 weeks at that point, including the 2 weeks detox. And I was like, oh, it's a lovely day. I'm going to go and just get myself a little quart bottle. And then that is it. This is going to be my final hurrah. I'm going to say goodbye to it with this little quarter bottle. And what do you think happened, Jen?
Straight back at it.
Straight back at it. With a vengeance, because, that's what I do. I don't do things by halves. So before I knew it, within like a couple of days, I was back on a bottle of vodka, passed out in my room, pissed my parents off. My brother's involved, his partner. Just annoying people, just winding people up, starting to message my ex and that guy again, and just winding everyone up and just making myself look like an absolute tool, like really just not a nice person, because it's like, what's wrong with you? Why can't you sort yourself out? So I ended up, was way up Point of Ayre in my car. My brother found me. He actually bought me some baccy, which was just, my brother's just been amazing the whole time. We have our little falls outs and all that over the years, but he really does love me. Yeah. And he took me to the hospital, and they were like, right, we're gonna get you in and do a detox, which is unheard of in the UK, to just go to hospital and get a detox. I don't know if they even do it as much over here. So I think a lot of people were going in benders and then going up to Nobles, getting a detox, and then they're back to work Tuesday. Do you know what I mean? It's like, but they couldn't. They had to do they had to do a breathalyzer, because they can't give you Librium until you're under the limit.
This always makes me laugh, and it's not funny. It shouldn't be funny.
But it is funny. It's absolutely hilarious. So when I was sat in the
mystery,
I'm a medical mystery.
Alcohol level not going
when
down.
I'm sat in the A&E changing rooms, in the waiting room, they would then take me in like every half hour, 45 minutes, whenever they're free, and they would blow it in. And they were like, why is this not going down? I was like, I'm absolutely baffled. So I was going down to the Strang shops, wasn't I? And getting myself little bottles and topping up, because I knew that I wasn't doing it to annoy them. I wasn't doing it for that. I knew the pain was coming, the withdrawal was coming, and I needed to stave that off. So they couldn't work it out. So they sent me home with a note saying, Jimmy needs to have, well, I was still Jim then. Jim needs to have, like 40 mil of vodka 8 times a day, something like that. I've got the note somewhere, but anyway, so I had to go home to my parents' house and say, yeah, so they had to go and buy me some Smirnoff, which I loved, because I was like, I was just drinking the cheap stuff at that point, like Glen's vodka. So they would go and buy me Smirnoff, and I was like, anyway, my mum had a little shot glass, and she put little nail polish on it where the 40 mil mark was. And like, I don't know what 40 mils is in a glass, but it probably wouldn't even fill that. It wasn't enough. So, and my mum, I'm not saying she's naive, but she wanted the best for me, but she was doing that and she was trying to help. But then I was like, I'm just going to go for a walk. I'm going to do this for a few days, and then we're going to go to the hospital, and then they're going to detox me. I was straight down the shop and getting more vodka, because that whatever they were giving me wasn't enough, because I could feel the shakes, I could feel the DTs. I was just in pain. And eventually my mum was like, right, this is not working. So they took me into Nobles again. And eventually I got on the Librium, because I wasn't going down the shops and buy more wine at that point. I was like, no, I need to do this. So I stayed in the hospital for 3 or 4 days. And then I came out, and I was like, I'm going to do everything and anything I can to get sober and stay sober, because I knew that this was it. If I didn't do it this time, it felt different. It felt like, I think in the past, when I was like, right, I'm going to get sober, I think there was a little thing on the little devil on my shoulder saying, yeah, but you're going to have a drink again at some point, like, we'll do it for this. And then I knew this time, I thought, like, I knew if I don't stop now, I'm not going to be here, I just thought, I'm not, I didn't want to do this anymore. So if I couldn't stop, it was like, well, there's no point in me being here. Like I never had suicidal thoughts or anything, but I think I've said in the past where if I stepped out on a road and a bus came along and took me out, it wouldn't have been the end, it wouldn't have been the worst thing in the world. Like I didn't want to do it myself, but because I wasn't happy, and I was just causing carnage and pain and destruction, especially to my mum. Like my mum's just so sweet and I love her to pieces, and I'm just so sorry that I put her through all of that. Oh,
she knows that.
Yeah. And then so I went and I was at the drugs and alcohol team. I went to Motivate. I was doing SMART. I was doing AA, NA, CA. I was doing my Zoom calls on a Saturday from my rehab place. We did a little catch up. So every single day of the week, and sometimes more than 2 or 3 in a day, because I was doing Zoom calls as well. Like I was going to Ohio, I was going to Australia, I was doing like AA or NA meetings with them online. So I did that for about 100 days. And then someone was like, because at that point I was like, right, I need to start working again. I need to start, earning money.
Was that a strategy that you'd chosen to do meetings, like lots of meetings every day?
Yeah. I knew when I started doing in-person meetings and then I started doing Zoom ones, it was the only thing that made me feel okay in that day. So I got a buzz from it and I was like, right, I need to do more of these. Okay. And I wasn't working. So I was like, right, I'm just going to keep doing meetings. Because I felt so invigorated when I came out of a meeting. Once I'd shared and I was talking, they couldn't shut me up. And,
really? Really.
And I was loving listening to other people's stories, which is exactly why I do the podcast. Because those are the stories that like, I was like, oh my God, I'm not fucking alone here. Like there's other people like me. And they've all got the same stories. Like they've done the same stuff as I've done. They've hid the vodka down the bottom of behind the sink, in the cistern. They've done all these things. So I'm not on my own. And yeah, so once I got past 100, someone said to me, I think it was Jason, he said, oh, there's a thing called 90 meetings in 90 days. And I was like, oh, well, I've smashed the shit out of that. So
you didn't know it was a thing?
I didn't know there was a thing. Yeah, no one had told me that. But I think that if anyone is trying to, give up, it is a hard thing to do, because obviously a lot of people have work. And I was very lucky that I didn't have a job at the time, that I wasn't, I didn't have a mortgage or rent to pay. I was living at my parents', so I had food on the table. So I was very lucky and blessed in that respect. Not everyone has the same circumstance, but it was COVID. It was a different time, and it was like a full reset for me. And I then got my little business started. I started doing gardening, started doing photography again, which was, amazing. I'm glad I did that because, I might not have met you, doing the markets that I did. And yeah, I got a little cottage up in the hills, it was a bit scary because I remember my first night there, the little voice said, oh, you could go get a bottle of wine and that would make this so much more enjoyable. Because I'd unpacked everything. I mean, I didn't have that many possessions, but I'd unpacked everything, put my new furniture from the hospice in and all that. I got it just right. And this little voice was like, you could go and get some wine now. But I remember playing the tape forward and I was like, yeah, but if I do that, that's not going to be enough. And then I'm going to have to drive down to the co-op and get some more. And then what if I get caught drink driving? All my jobs, my gardening customers, my flat, my cottage, my family, all this it's all gone. It's all gone if I do that.
You played it for us.
Yeah. And then it just, like I didn't do meetings every day, but I was very militant with NA and CA. They were my main things for the first year. Like I was, I did the service, I was reading from the books, I was doing this, doing that. Anyone asked me, I was doing it. That was it. That was my life for the first year. And then I just needed to kind of not break away from it, but I was like, right, I've done that. I've done a year. A year was amazing. It was like, I'm seeing so many people on Instagram today that are like just coming up on a year, or they're a year on Wednesday because like they stopped on, the 1st of January last year. And it's just so lovely to see so many posts coming up. I've got a year. Because it's such a, that is an amazing feeling. But then you're like, oh, now what? I've got a year, because I'd never done what I did on 55 days, maybe nearly 90 before. And now I've got a year. It's like, fuck. Right. I just need to get 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. And now it's like, well, waiting on 6 years. So I just, I didn't know how bad alcohol was for you. I didn't know that. I didn't know the dangers. I didn't know, that it's a carcinogen. And I didn't know the damage that someone that was drinking as much as me was doing to me. I didn't realize how much of a damage it could do to my liver. I'm very lucky that I haven't, touched wood, got any long lasting damage. Lindsay that died in June, she was, I think she was about 9 years younger than me, and she had liver cirrhosis at the age of 32. I know she's smaller than me and this, that, and the other, but it's a roll of the dice, really. And I am lucky. I just always thought, when I'm in my 60s or 70s, when I'm an old wrinkly, that's when I'll get cirrhosis. But no, it happens to people. It happens to people all the time, and that's really what I do the podcast for, to help people, but also to raise awareness. And I think that's first and foremost what I'm, really passionate about when it comes to recovery. I've kind of done my recovery now, and I'm not in any, don't think I'm in any danger of picking up now. That's not even a thought, because I don't.
You're still very steeped in that kind of world, aren't you? So doing your podcast and doing your peer mentoring, and you're still kind of involved in it all, because I guess you could kind of recover and be like, okay, I'm 5 years sober, and then just kind of close that section of your life off.
Yeah. Which
is understandable if that's what people want to do, but you haven't.
No, I mean, I think it's more to do with, like, there was people there for me when I needed them, and they were like, I didn't want to speak to someone that hadn't been there and done that. If it was a peer mentor, peer, someone that had been there and had the experience, lived experience, those were the people that I wanted to listen to, and those are the people that helped me. So I don't want to just get sober. I never wanted to just get sober and then go, right, thanks, see you later, because I was like, I was helped, so I want to be able to do that. And you get it you see it all the time. There's so many people that get sober and they're like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And there's some people out there that are 6 months sober and they're sober coaches. Some are great, but some are, I don't know, not probably at the right place to do that. But I didn't want to do it until I was ready. And, now I've been doing peer mentoring for what, 2 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm going to start sober coaching training in April, which is going to be awesome. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. But it's the right time for me as well, because, obviously I met you in the middle of it all. I think I'd just come up from my 3rd year sober.
3 years, yeah.
Yeah. So
nearly, because I came to your 3rd year sober barbecue. Do you remember?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Like, just met you.
All our family.
Meet everyone, family, friends, and yeah, bless you. You did. You took it in your stride, though. It was awesome. And I think that's, I wanted to have, I wanted to live. I wanted to have a life. I wanted to build this amazing life, and and thanks to you coming in and not running for the hills. It's the thing is,
your hill, babe.
He ran to my hill, up in Craignish, but. I think to myself, when I was thinking about doing this podcast with you today, I was thinking, you've never, like, you've heard the stories and all that, but you've never had to see me at my worst like that. No. And not hopefully, you're never going to see me like that, because I know I'm never going to have a drink again. I know there's a lot of things in AA and fellowship. Oh, never say never, and one day at a time. Yeah, fuck that. I know I'm not going to have a drink. I've no interest in having a drink. It's not going to bring me anything. It's going to take everything away from me and us,
Mm-hmm.
Imagine coming home and seeing me passed out on the sofa with a bottle of vodka in my lap.
I'll be gutted for you.
You would be, but I don't know if you'd be like, "Oh, we can fix this." I think you'd be like, "Get out, go on, sling your rook," because you've heard the stories. You know where it ends up.
Every time it got
Every
a little bit
time.
harder and a little bit faster. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, for what? For one drink to just test it? I don't want to test it. I don't need to test it. I know I don't need to test it because I know historically where it's gone.
Yeah. So alcohol's not part. It's not obviously in your future, but it's around in our lives. Like I'm not sober. I drink sometimes, not a lot, but it's part of it's around in our social life, and I will too. But like, so what's your relationship with alcohol as a whole? Not your personal relationship, but like, what do you think about it now?
I don't like alcohol. I think you know that. I don't mind you having a drink because I know you are one of these enigmas that literally can take it or leave it.
Yeah.
Like you can just have a couple of drinks and then go, yeah, that's me done.
I don't know the last time I had a drink.
No, I mean, there's booze in our fridge, which again is it's not even a trigger for me. I know it's in there, but it's been in there. It's probably out of date. I don't know. Wine doesn't go out of date, but anyway, it's yeah. But you've said to me, like, say for instance, your hen do when you came back in and you were like, "Oh, I'm so drunk," and I was like, "You're really not. You're really not, babe. You're really not. You're a bit tipsy or merry."
I think I hadn't drunk for 6 months before that.
Yeah, you'd had a good time off, but I think I'd say you are an enigma because I think a lot of people that like a drink, and I think the majority. I might be wrong, but I think the majority of people out on a Friday and Saturday night are not just having a couple of drinks. They're you see, oh, we're going to go out and get mullered and this and that, and I'm not talking about people we know. I'm talking about like the masses out there.
I think you've definitely changed my relationship to alcohol because, well, I did used to drink more, but it was always this, and it's so weird, like the kind of reward aspect of it. Like, oh, I've had a tough day, so I'm like, oh well, bedtimes are done. I'll have a gin and tonic, and now I'm like, well, why? Like, but I'll have my winter warmer herbal tea. I don't get, like, I really don't understand that. It's either a reward for coping with a difficult day or a celebration of having a good day. It just seems like a really strange thing to me now. And the other thing that kind of conversations with alcohol and listening to your podcast and the podcast that you've been on and stuff, I'm kind of just like the sober community stuff that pops up now, thanks to the algorithms on my Instagram. Just interesting stuff. Like the kind of the weird way that it becomes people's personality, like having a drink like 1 o'clock and like flipping doormats that say if you haven't got gin, you're not coming in, or it's gross. Like it's and like I don't have a problem with alcohol. I don't have a problem with people drinking alcohol. I understand your journey and I fully respect that. But obviously I'm not going to create a world where alcohol doesn't exist. And I don't believe that that's going to happen. But also people who make it their personality and people who have it on like tote bags and purses and doormats and signs on their wall. It's just like,
Did you see that thing? It was a not on the high street post, and I put it as a story, and it was like a framed picture. And it had all the members of the family. So there was obviously there was a father, and it was like, say, a bottle of whiskey, the mother, bottle of Prosecco. Then there was like the two, I'm guessing, adult children, because there was little ones as well. So they were like having, I don't know, like a bottle of vodka, and then there was a bottle of whatever, and it was all booze all the way down to the youngest child. There was a fruit shoot, and then there was the dog bowl. But it was like this family was like, I don't know, 6 people. So there's obviously some grown adult children, but like, are they grown adults or are they just like 16, 17? I don't know. It is where our society is completely steeped in it. And all I'm asking for and I need to start maybe campaigning with our MHKs here, is putting labels on. You know, it's about time, because it is a carcinogen. You know, it isn't safe. if you listen to a lot of you read a lot of the research that I've done, there is really no safe level for it. You know, like, I'm not saying it's going to cause you cancer or whatever straight away. It's that's not the case. But if you don't imbibe it, you're going to be healthier. And that's all I'm kind of saying. And I think people need to be aware of that, because the amount of people that I speak to don't know, because it's not in the bottles.
Well,
All the
because when you
bottles and
stopped
cans say,
drinking, it was because of the effect on kind of your relationships and obviously your
yeah,
kind of immediate health in terms of, you know, not being able to function.
yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, I was the full extreme.
It wasn't because of the long-term health effects, was it?
No. But I didn't know about that.
And you didn't know
You know,
that?
my short-term health was being affected because I was drinking so much. But that's the thing. If something that could be seen to be degrading my personal health in such a, you know, well, it'd taken me years to probably get to that point, but because my drinking had become so acute, if that's the right word, at the end, like, because I was drinking a bottle of vodka a day.
You did have a
like,
seizure at some point, didn't you?
I had seizures in the past, yeah, not at that point, because I was kind of keeping it topped up. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a poison, plain and simple. But I had no idea, even right at the end, that it was causing me that much. That it was causing me that much damage. Luckily, as I say, touch wood, I haven't, you know, got any long-term effects. But you know, that remains to be seen. But I just think that people need to be more aware. You know, people need to know what they're doing, because I had no clue, and I was like one of the biggest drinkers you never know. And if I'm calling it a hobby, because I was like, you know, could tell you anything about bottles, or I wouldn't say I was a connoisseur. I was more like a kind of, I'm not even an expert. Enthusiast, that's the word. Yeah, I was an enthusiast. So yeah. But I had no clue. And I think a lot of people, especially at this time of year, Christmas and New Year, you know, there are the people that go out and just have a few, like yourself, and it's great, and I think that's fine, and I don't want to take that away from people. But I think there are a lot of people that have that Pavlovian response where I've had a bad day at work, I'm going to come home, you know, my life isn't great, I'm maybe single, and blah blah blah. I'm what am I going to do? I've got a shit job. Well, I'm going to have a drink because that's going to make me feel better. And before you know it, that becomes like maybe a couple of glasses out of a bottle, and then you put it back in the fridge, and then about a month later, you're going into the second bottle. You're just having one glass out of that, and before you know it, that bottle's finished as well. It's a slow process, and it builds up very. It's a slow process, but before you know it, it's like it's got hold of you, you know. And I know that's a very sweeping kind of statement, but I think there's that old statement that says, if you think you've got a problem with alcohol, then you've got a problem with alcohol.
Yeah.
Do something about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you got any other questions?
Yeah, so obviously our eldest is a little older than you were when you started your journey with alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you think that's kind of affecting your... Well, I think you've had some quite honest discussions with him.
Yeah.
About your past. We've been honest.
They all know,
haven't we? Yeah.
Yeah, they all know. I mean, so much so that
I kind of hope that gives them a bit of a heads up, and obviously they see my relationship with alcohol, that it's kind of like a take it or leave it.
They definitely know there's. I mean, they'll see alcohol in the fridge, but there's not any nights where, if we're all in on a Friday and Saturday night, obviously they won't see me drinking, but they don't really rarely ever see you having a glass or two. You know, I can't remember the last time in the house, so it's not a normalized behavior in our house.
No.
And I think that's a good thing, because I think not so much with me growing up. My parents didn't really have that much drink in the house, maybe at parties and stuff, but I did see it at other people's houses and on TV. And I think growing up in the 80s and 90s, it was definitely a normalized behavior for us all to see our parents or people, our elders, drinking at parties and socializing and it looking like this big glamorous thing. So it was like, for me especially, it was like, wow, I can't wait to do that and be part of that club. That's what growing up is being. It's being able to drink, and I think that mentality needs to change, because I think when you're talking about a carcinogen, like, let's be honest, we frown upon people that smoke now. No, do you know what I mean? It's like, you hardly ever see a smoker. They're not really about. They're definitely not any parties we go to. I don't really know any smokers really. But like, when you're talking about alcohol, it is in the same poisonous, carcinogenic.
There you go.
Sentence is that, now I know a lot of people don't want to hear that and they don't want to believe that, but it's there, it's plain and simple. And I just think, why are we normalizing that for our children? Because it is this kind of socially accepted thing, but
I don't think we should be normalizing it for them. No, I agree. But also we need to be equipping them to be able to cope with the world that has it in it.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to go. Like,
no,
it's not going to go.
Not overnight.
No. I think it'd be interesting to see, like, in 20 years' time, what kind of society's attitude to it is. But for our kids growing up, it's not going to have disappeared. So making sure that they kind of have a realistic view of it.
I think
they're very open, aren't they, anyway? So I think they'd always be very honest if they needed.
I think so. I don't think there's going to be any stuff done behind their backs like what I did. I think I was talking to our middle one the other day, and they were talking about how, and maybe this was just what thought I wanted to hear, but it was like, I know I will have a drink at one point, but I know the dangers of it, and I know it's this and I know it's that. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. But I think a lot of young people, they do Google stuff. They do know that it's bad for you. Like, if they Google, is alcohol bad for me? It'll hopefully come up with, it's this, it's that, it's, 7 types of cancer. So they'll be like, well, why do I want to do that?
I mean, I know it's the risk of smartphones and being immortalized.
Exactly.
Getting mortal by their mates. That's oh my gosh.
Mortalized getting mortal.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm glad they went around when I was young.
Yeah. Hey? If we had any videos of us when we were younger, around the park, up in the woods or whatever, getting absolutely trolleyed, and then it being on the internet, like,
oh no.
But also they're very health conscious. I mean, they're very into their fitness, dancing, whatever.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they will become. They're definitely not going to be going around, the back of the bus station or whatever and doing that. I don't think.
Well, we can't say definitely, can we really?
No. Don't think it become a habit though. So like when I was doing it, it definitely became a habit. Like it was, that's what I did at the weekends. That's what I did, so it quickly became quite a habit early on. But I didn't think anything wrong of it or anything like that. No, I think they're in good hands. And you know what? If they do have a problematic night at a party or whatever, where they have one too many, they're gonna be like, oh my God, I'm never doing that again. Whereas I think with me, it was like, wow,
when can I do that again?
Well, yeah, no, it was like, right, I'll that's happened. I'm going to try not do that again, but I enjoyed the bit before it, But I don't know. It's bizarre. But you know what? It's a learning curve, and I think, as you say, we've just got to equip them with the tools to, get through life. And if we can kind of give them all the facts and all the data and all the kind of tools to do it, then by all means, And with you not being a massive drinker and me being an ex-party head, then I think they've got some good, solid advice to come from.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you could tell your 14-year-old self not to, would you? Do you think you'd even listen to your 45-year-old self?
I don't know if I'd recognise myself, would I?
Really?
Jesus, I don't know. I mean, it's weird, isn't it? Would I?
I don't know.
If this weird 45, nearly 46-year-old man came up to me,
Give you in the park when you sat there with your mates and your bottles of cider.
Yeah, and said, "Right, you shouldn't actually drink."
You, Jimmy.
Yeah, see you, Jimmy. Be like, what? Would I listen? Would I want to listen? I don't think so. I mean, I probably wouldn't even go back and tell myself that. I'd probably be like, well, because then I'd be a different person.
Of everything, Jimmy, and you might not be where you are now.
Don't want to do that whole paradox thing from Back to the Future and mess up the future again, and then I wouldn't know you. Mm-hmm. So no, yeah, don't get me wrong. I probably could have had this completely different life where I was maybe doing this or doing that, and you know, I could have been a successful photographer or this or that, or just doing it and being a sober person. Who knows? And I might be a different type of happy, but it's not me, because this is me, and this lived experience I would not change for the world, because I'm helping people every day. You know, I'm doing the podcast and trying to get these stories out there, which, you know, this is why I needed to get my story out as well. I know it's taken like 50 episodes to do it, but no, it's good, you know. But I think I wouldn't change anything for the world, because, and not just the life that I have now with you and the kids and everything like that, but because of what, like passion, experience and everything that I'm doing. Because I think, like we were talking about, in the 5 and a bit years that I've been sober, like the sober community has just grown exponentially. And the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years is going to be amazing, because there's so many people that are just gonna, you know what, they weren't as bad as me. They weren't even half as bad as me. Maybe a grey area drinker, middle of the road drinker, if you want to call them that. But they're like, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore, because why? It's bad for me. And it's also like a character altering drug. You become a different person. You know, it gives you confidence. Yeah, it gives you that little boost to be funny and all that. But why not just try and be yourself without it?
Because that's scary for a lot of people.
It is scary. It's very scary. I have to do it every day. But actually, you know what? It's a lot of fun being yourself.
I know.
You know? I mean, you yourself anyway. You are. But yeah,
well, I'm glad you went on the journey that you went on, because, well, you wouldn't be who you were, so kind of, you know, articulate with your emotions. And, you know, we both went on kind of journeys to get to where we are, to get to a place where we were ready to meet each other.
Absolutely. We met each other at the right time. Yeah, we really did. Yeah, you've been on an amazing journey, and finding out who you really are and who you want in your life and what values you hold dear. Yeah. Well,
I'm glad we got there.
I'm glad we got there with a few technical issues and all that on this, but we've got there.
Oh no, the technical issues with the microphone.
I realised that.
I'm glad we got there to each other in our lives. You know.
I'm glad we did that as well.
And
babe.
also with good microphones too, babe.
Yeah, we are on the same page normally, but yeah, sorry, I skipped forward a bit there. But yeah, no, I'm so glad that we met, and when we did at the right time, when the planets were aligned and the universe was transpiring, because it was the right time for me, absolutely. And I remember that day vividly. So yeah,
me too.
I love it. But yeah, on the podcast,
then.
a little bit, you know, I do. I love thinking about it, but yeah,
oh, look at you.
Stop it. I'm glad we overcame the technical issues and we got this out, because it's what, 1 hour and 47 now. Wow. Yeah. It's good. Good start of the new year for this podcast. So Thank you so much for coming on and interviewing me. I hope I haven't blabbed too much.
Well, that's the aim of the game. But yeah, you did talk a lot, babe. That's
well, it's the full story. It's the full story.
Yeah.
I think I covered everything.
Jimmy Unwrapped.
Christmas Unwrapped. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was just meaning the pun. Anyway, we are waffling now, but thank you, Jen. I will see you at tea time.
I'll get the dinner on. You come downstairs.
You get the dinner.
Dinner will be ready.
Yeah. All right, babe. Love you.
I love you too.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.
Hope you guys enjoyed that. We really enjoyed doing it, and thank you to Jen, my beautiful wife, for giving up her time to kind of interview me on the podcast. We as I said, we had a lot of fun doing it. I was upstairs in the studio, Jen was downstairs in the living room. We did have a few technical issues with microphones and echoes and all that. Don't really know what happened, but the kind of tech gods shined on us, and it just worked, and then we went for it. I hope people do get a lot out of, listening to my story. I was kind of at rock bottom. But the whole point in the podcast is that I don't want people to get to rock bottom. I don't want them to get as bad as I was, drinking vodka in the morning before I'd even opened my eyes, and just turning everyone away from me. I don't want people to get there. If you're starting to recognize that you do have a bit of an issue with alcohol or drugs or whatever, then address it, do something about it. Don't wait until it gets worse, because if there is an issue, it will only get worse. It doesn't get better. It does get worse. And before you know it, it's even worse. It's even harder to kind of come back from. So don't let it get that bad. If you've had a real big blowout over New Year, and today you're just hanging, struggling, give up. Just because you've maybe drank this morning on the 1st doesn't matter. You can give up anytime you like. I know it's not as easy as just giving up and just stopping, but you have the power to make a change and make that change in your life and stop. Don't just throw it away because you think, I've missed the 1st of January again, or I've missed my day that I was planning on stopping drinking. Don't fret about that. Just start again, start fresh, and give up and get the help, the support. I've got Sober Seasons on Facebook, which is, a kind of 90-day, 3-month abstinence from alcohol. But majority of people on there do want to abstain forever. So they do the 3 months. They feel the kind of changes, the clarity, the skin getting better, the more money in their pocket. And then they kind of, start moving forward from there. And they don't get to the end of 3 months and go, right, that's me done 3 months. Some might do. I don't know. There are a few people that don't talk on there, but they're there, hopefully getting the support from the other people. But it is growing, it's building. After Christmas, I saw this amazing flux of people that had successes and were getting a year, 6 months, 18 months, 2 years. And they were posting themselves, which is just, and then someone else comes in and says they're struggling. Other people, rather than just myself, every time going in and offering up their support and their health, their help, and their knowledge from getting the longevity of sobriety that they've got themselves. So that's just really kind of warms my heart to see that that's kind of its own beast now. It's kind of growing and it's taking care of itself. People are supporting each other in there, which is what it was all about in the beginning. I am gonna start putting some links to Motivate, which is the addiction charity that I work for over here, to donate to them. I want to do one for NACOA as well, because I think that's a very important charity. So I'm going to just put those in the links. Apart from working for Motivate, I'm not affiliated with either of these. But I just thought I need to put some places for people to, if they are interested in donating, then to donate to these two charities that do hold very dear in my heart. But yeah, thanks for listening, guys. We've got loads more amazing guests coming up in the next 24 episodes after this for this season. A lot of which I have recorded already. But I'm going to wait and do the intros and outros so that they're not like just weeks in advance and then I'm talking about stuff that isn't happening. I want to try and keep it forefront and kind of in the now. So yeah, so look forward to that, guys. Keep sharing, keep liking, subscribe if you haven't already. And yeah, stay safe, stay sober, and stay supportive. Cheers, guys. Peace. Bye bye.